Film photography is making a comeback. For a little while, it was more or less extinct, but now people are loving that vintage look. The problem is, if you've never shot film, there's a little bit of a learning curve coming from digital cameras. But luckily you're in the right place, because today I'm going to walk you through everything you need to know to get started shooting film, from knowing absolutely nothing to having your first roll of film done, developed, and scanned. I'm gonna wait till the person's walking out of the background. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Awesome. We're gonna go over choosing your camera and film. We're gonna go over how to load your film into your camera, how to get the correct exposure when shooting, then how to get your film developed and scan it yourself. There's chapters for each one of these things down at the bottom, so if there's one specific thing you're looking for, you can just click on there and skip to that part. And if you find this video helpful, consider hitting the like button and subscribing for more. All right, let's get into it.
So confused.
The initial cost entry for film photography is actually super low, especially if you're used to the price of digital cameras. There's lots of different formats of film cameras, but today we're specifically focusing on the 35mm SLR camera. These are some of the most common, easy to use, and versatile cameras there are. 35mm refers to the size of the negative, about this big. And SLR stands for single lens reflex, which basically just means that when you look through the viewfinder, you're looking through the actual lens of the camera. These cameras capture photos just like DSLRs, except instead of the light hitting a digital sensor and saving the image to a computer, the light is going to hit a strip of film instead. You can find used SLRs of various ages and styles for pretty cheap, like less than $100. Specifically, I'd recommend looking for one with an interchangeable lens system like mine, because then you can switch out your lenses for different situations and you can upgrade, and they end up being a lot more versatile. Next, we need our film. This part's actually pretty fun because the style of film we choose is going to determine the style and effect of our photos. Each film stock has a unique color profile and a different amount of grain that's going to show up in your image and a different level of contrast. Remember when I said the initial entry cost of film photography is pretty low? This is where it starts to go up. 35mm film usually comes in canisters of 36 exposures or 36 photos, and one canister can range anywhere from $15 to $40. And that doesn't include the price of scanning and developing, but we're gonna get to that. Other than the brand of film you're going for, the other important thing you wanna look for is the film speed. You know how on your digital camera you have ISO that can change the sensitivity to light, can either brighten or darken your image? Well, film has that too, except it doesn't work quite the same way. The big difference is that you can't change your ISO on film. When you buy the film, you're gonna buy the film at a certain ISO, and your film is gonna be that ISO the entire time. The lower the number, the darker the film is going to be, but the less grainy. The higher the number, the brighter the film will be, but it'll have more grain. When you're buying your film, you want to consider what stuff you're going to be shooting on this roll, because that's going to determine what ISO you want to get. If you know you're going to be shooting in a setting with a lot of natural light, you can go with a low ISO like 160, and that's going to give you a really high quality image. But it's generally safer to go with a bit of a higher ISO like ISO 400 or 800, because if you choose a brighter ISO, it's really easy to lower your exposure by having a fast shutter speed or closing down your aperture really small. But if you're shooting in a setting that's too dark for the ISO you got because you got a low ISO speed, it's pretty difficult to brighten up your image enough to capture a photo. And the last thing to pay attention to when buying your film is the film's white balance. There's two main types, daylight and tungsten. Just like your ISO, you won't be able to change this, so think about what you're going to be shooting. Are you going to be outdoors? Or are you going to be shooting in natural light? Then you want to choose daylight. If you know you're going to be shooting indoors with very warm lighting, then you might want to choose tungsten. Or you can also go the black and white route if you want. My choice of film for this video is going to be the Kodak Portra 400. This is 36 shots of color, daylight balanced ISO 400 film. Portra 400 is widely considered to be a very good looking film, but there are plenty of other solid options. You just have to find out what fits your style. And ISO 400 is going to be really versatile. I know I'm going to be shooting outside around golden hour, so I might be able to get away with ISO 160, but with ISO 400, now I know I can shoot in a slightly darker area, like in the shade or in an alley or something, and I'll probably still be able to get a proper exposure. Okay, so you have your camera and you have your film. Now here's how to load your film into your camera without ruining it. Each camera will look a little bit different, but they load more or less the same way. You have a little dial on this side of your camera. Pulling it up should open the back door. Once it's open, you'll see your film holder, your shutter, and the gears that are going to pull your film across when you take a new photo. First, you're going to place your canister in the camera like this and press down the dial to lock it in. Being careful not to touch your shutter, grab your film and gently pull it across towards the gears. Remember, any bit of film that gets exposed to the light is instantly ruined, so we don't want to pull out any more than we need here. Pull it until the holes on the film sit nicely in these little teeth and push the thinner bit of the film through the hole in the gear. Now when we wind up our camera to take the next photo, that's going to be winding this gear up and pulling the film across. Now we're going to close up the camera. This is very important. Once the camera is closed and we've started taking photos, we can't open it back up until we've shot the entire roll, or else we're going to expose our photos to light and ruin all of them. Now we're almost ready to shoot. You have 2 blank shots that you need to take in order to pull the film across enough so that none of the film that was exposed when we loaded the camera is going to be in the shutter. So you can wind the shutter and click the shutter button once, do it again, and you can see on the right the film counter is moving up. They actually have 2 dots there before the first exposure to account for that. Also pay attention, if the dial on the left side of your camera is spinning when you pull the lever on the right side of your camera, that means your film is moving out of the canister and you loaded it properly. Now we can set the dial to color film. This doesn't actually do anything for the camera, it just reminds you what film you put in the camera and if there's any film in the camera so that you don't have to open the back door to check and potentially ruin your film. Then we're going to set the ISO of the film that we chose on the camera's dial so that the camera's built-in light meter knows how brightly to expose the image. I'm setting mine to 400 because that's the film I got. And that's it, you're ready to shoot. I know this probably seems like a lot of steps at first, but once you get in the rhythm of it and you get comfortable with loading your film, it's actually pretty quick. Getting your exposure correct is probably the trickiest part about shooting film, especially if you're used to digital where you can just take a photo and take a look at that photo and see if it's bright enough. Obviously you can't do that on film, so you have to know how to use your light meter. Depending on how new your film camera is, the light meter might be a varying level of complexity. Mine was built in the 80s, so it's actually very simple. Basically you turn it on by clicking the button next to the lens. You see a bar on the right hand side perk up. Basically if the bar is too high, it's overexposed. If it's too low, it's underexposed. And when the bar sits right in the middle, that means the camera thinks the image is properly exposed. Yours may look a little bit different, but it'll effectively do the same thing. If your camera doesn't have a light meter or you just want a more accurate measurement, you can use a handheld light meter like this one, but it's not really necessary for this kind of film shooting. One of the most annoying parts for me about film is that you don't know how it turned out. Like I just want to see what that photo looked like, and I have no idea. I'm just gonna wait like a few days. So to change your exposure, you can choose the aperture on the ring on the lens, and you can adjust your shutter speed by the dial on the top. So an interesting aspect about shooting with this is that you can only do manual focus, and that causes some interesting issues because when you're using your aperture, it's giving you a live view of what the aperture actually is. So if you want to shoot at f/16, you're viewing through the lens at f/16, which means it's dark and kind of hard to focus. So what I like to do is have my lens as wide open as possible to get my focus first. Then once I've nailed my focus and I think I got it, I'll go down to the aperture that I actually want, that's the correct exposure, and then that way I can actually get a more accurate focus.
Tell you when. Go.
I hope that turned out because that was really funny. Okay, so at this point you've shot all your film. It's all out of the canister and rolled up on the other side of the camera. We need to take it out to get it developed, but if we open up the camera now, we're going to expose the film to light and ruin all the photos. So here's how to get your film out of your camera without ruining it. First, you're going to pop up the little lever on the left side and then press this little button on the bottom of the camera. Pressing this button will release the gears inside the camera and let you rewind the film backwards. Now you're going to wind this lever clockwise, and what you're doing is twisting the film back up into the canister. Keep spinning until you don't feel any resistance, and then go just a little bit extra to make sure. It doesn't hurt anything to overwind it, so you might as well just give it a little extra to make sure it's all inside the canister. You're gonna wind the film up until you don't feel any resistance anymore, and now you can pull up the lever to open up the back door. If you did it right, then you shouldn't see any film. You should just see your film canister sitting by itself on the left side. If you still see film sticking out, then I'm sorry, but any film that is sticking out and exposed to light is ruined. Now we can take this canister and drop it off for developing. Basically, you know a lot about what you're doing with photography in terms of you know your exposure triangle, you know what the settings are doing.
Yes.
But you've never really shot on a camera like this before.
No. I'm pretty confident I can get some bangers. So I'm a professional, obviously. I know what I'm doing, and I'm gonna show Will how to really do it. It says, oh, it's underexposed. Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, do you have it clicked in? Because no, it wasn't clicked in, so you weren't.
No, okay.
So now you're getting your exposure.
So my exposure's good. I figured out how to set my exposure. We're good. All right, Will, let's get you lined up. No glasses. Now you're tall, so I'm actually gonna get you to do like a crouch, like just hands relaxed, so that I can get more of the background, more of the trees. That could work. I'm just guessing. Oh, that's overexposed. Okay, hold on. Okay, I'm pretty sure I've nailed. Yeah.
Okay, so I won't move, and then set it back your exposure proper.
Okay, I think that's good. And I'm gonna go 3, 2.
Nice.
Instagram banger. I'm so confident. I'm a one hit wonder. Here you go. You can have it back now.
Okay, now it's Stefano's turn. Have you shot with film before?
I do have a film camera. I've shot with film before, but I'll be honest, I have no clue what I'm doing. So how do I know if it's exposed properly?
So where's the needle right now on the light meter? Like up, down?
It's all the way up.
All the way up, so overexposed. It's gonna be right in the center of that gap is perfectly exposed according to what the camera thinks.
Can I change every setting, all three?
Yes, except for the ISO because that's set by what the film we put in. So we have 400 ISO film, so that's like you're locked at 400 ISO, but you can change your shutter speed and aperture. Yeah.
I'm not gonna know how to use this camera. Yeah, I still wanna get that nice blurry background. There we go. I'm still overexposed. Let me go to 1,000.
And what are you at though, F2?
I'm at F2 right now.
You might need to go, yeah, you might need to bring that down a little bit.
Let's make sure you're in focus here. Give me like, actually you wanna look towards like the water. It's so hard to focus this. Hopefully I got it. I don't know.
Scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that that is gonna turn out? Because they can see it.
7 out of 10.
To make it really simple, developing your negatives is putting the negatives into some chemicals in order to change those light reactive negatives into something that isn't light reactive. This way we can take our negatives and look at them in the light, and the light hitting them isn't going to affect them in any way. That allows us to scan them and turn them into digital photos. You can do this yourself, but it's a higher upfront cost and it's pretty involved, especially for color film. Black and white's a little bit simpler to do at home, but color film specifically is kind of tricky. I just dropped mine off at a shop to get developed. I go to Downtown Camera in Toronto. This isn't sponsored, they're just the only shop within like 100 kilometers that still offers that service. If there aren't any stores near you that offer film developing, there's a lot of places that you can do mail-in instead. So you put your canister in an envelope, mail it in, and they mail you back the negatives developed. Now at stores like this, you can also pay a fee on top of the developing fee to get them scanned for you so that you don't have to do that part. But at Downtown Camera, right now it costs me $8 to get my roll of film developed, but an additional $25 to have that roll turned into high-res digital files. So I'd rather just do the scanning myself. There's a few ways to scan your film, but the flatbed method is widely considered the highest quality. I bought this flatbed scanner, the Epson V600, used for about $200, which is a higher upfront cost, but it means if scanning costs $25 per roll, I only have to scan about 8 rolls of film with this scanner in order for it to be worth it. Plus the scanner can still be used for pretty much anything like scanning paper to PDF and stuff, so you can use it for other things too. If you decide to go the self-scanning route, here's how to do it. First, if you're buying a scanner, you want to make sure it's compatible with film scanning because it's a different scanning process than just scanning a regular document. This Epson one specifically is compatible and it comes with film trays. These are really convenient little trays that allow me to slide my film right into them so that it scans properly. Upon my request, the developing place cuts my negatives into blocks of 4 photos, which is the perfect size to put into this tray. So I gently slide the negatives in, make sure they're lined up, and close the tray. Then I'm going to take my little hand dust blower thing and blow off the negatives on both sides. Even if you don't think there's dust on them, there is, so just give them a little blow.
That's what she said.
And I'll put my film tray on there and close the lid. In the scanning software on my computer, I can adjust the resolution of the scan and also add some effects and stuff that I personally don't really want to do because I can just edit them in Photoshop later. So I'm going to save these as high quality TIFF files because that's basically the highest quality I can get out of this scan. And I'm going to scan somewhere between 2400 DPI and 3600 DPI. You can go higher or lower than that if you want, but the higher the DPI, the longer the scan is going to take. And the lower the DPI, obviously the lower the resolution of the image. So I find around 3600 is a sweet spot. Then hit scan and wait a few minutes and rinse and repeat with the rest of the film strips. There you go. Now we've just immortalized our film into digital form. Now if you want, you can stop there. But if you're a bit of a perfectionist like me, you can bring these photos into Photoshop and clone stamp out all the little dust specks. I know we dusted them off beforehand, but you can never really get all the little specks off, and especially when you're blowing up something this size into an entire computer screen size, even the tiniest specks of dust are going to be noticeable. When it comes to editing the photo, you don't have the same flexibility of a raw file that you would on digital, but you can still make some tweaks. But that's why choosing the type of film is so important, because instead of editing it to your style afterwards, you're kind of choosing the style up front. And that's it. Your photos are finished. I know that's a lot to go over and there's a lot to cover in here, but once you get the hang of it, it's not that bad. I will say the repeated cost of shooting film can get a little pricey, so to save money, do not buy your film on sites like Amazon because it is way overpriced. The store near me sells a roll of 36 for between 15 and 20 bucks, whereas on Amazon, that exact same roll is like $45. So each time you shoot a roll of film, for me, it's about $20, let's say, for the roll of film, $8 to have that film developed, and then the scanning is free because I'm doing it myself, and that's the repeated cost that you're gonna have to pay each time. Also, if this seems like a lot, feel free to save this video and come back to it later. Again, I have everything set up into chapters, so if at any point you're stuck along the process, you can skip to that specific thing and figure it out. But I'm curious to know, now that you know everything involved with shooting film, are you still interested in doing it, or does it seem like too much? Because some people really like that film aesthetic, but then they hear all the work that goes into it and they're like, no, I'll just put a preset on my photos. Because if this sounds like too much work, I don't really blame you. Especially with the price of film and the scarcity of places that sell it, it can kind of be a headache. But honestly, I do enjoy the process a lot. Yes, it's more of a hassle than digital, but at the end of the day, you have this really raw feeling kind of photo. I also find because I have 36 shots and not 3,600 shots in my camera, I slow down and pay a little bit more attention to each photo. It's a really good practice in patience and making sure you're taking good photos each time instead of just run and gun rapid fire. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. If you want to see how the rest of the photos from the shoot turned out, you can check out my Instagram. I'm posting them on there. And if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe if you want to see more. And that's about it. I'll see you guys in the next one.